Hello everyone, greetings of the day. So we will continue today in the third session, that is non-ferrous material. We have begun with engineering materials. We have first studied the introduction of engineering materials and the properties, mechanical properties. In the second class we have studied about the ferrous materials, different types of ferrous materials, their composition and their application, right? Now we have finished with ferrous materials, and now in the next class we will start with non-ferrous materials. Okay, so by definition, what is a non-ferrous material? I have already told this earlier. So any metal or an alloy which do not contain iron as a base metal are called as non-ferrous metals and alloys, right? So they do not contain any amount of iron content in them, then we call them as non-ferrous materials. So these non-ferrous materials are extensively used in basically in electrical and in thermal industries, where the conductivity is required. Okay, that is a major application of that. It's basically used in most of the electrical industries as well as in thermal industries, where the conductivity is required. So most of the non-ferrous materials, if you see, will have a very good thermal conductivity and electrical conductivity. Okay, so some of the examples which you already know of non-ferrous materials are aluminium, copper, lead, tin, magnesium, nickel, zinc, titanium, etc. So these are the different materials, and some of the important properties of these are, as I've mentioned, they have very good thermal conductivity, they have very good resistance to corrosion, they are very easy to fabricate, and one more important thing is they usually have high strength to weight ratio. That means the weight will be less but the strength will be more. That's a very important property of that. And they are also ductile and they are also non-magnetic. Okay, so we'll just see some of these ferrous materials one by one. Okay, first one and the most important one is copper and of course and its alloys. So the most important non-ferrous material, and it is the first metal that was discovered by man. So we have come a long way. We have started from the Stone Age, right? So then we had this age where we had Copper Age also. That is where in very old times we have discovered copper. Human beings have discovered copper, and they have started using copper from a very long time, right? So they have used it for making copper coins and utensils. All right. So what are the properties of copper? They are malleable, they are corrosion resistant, they are very good conductor of heat and electricity, right? They are very good conductors of heat and electricity, and that is why it becomes such an important metal that we use even today, right? So mainly it's used in, as you can see in the sketches below, it's basically used for electronic components in making wires, right? The wires, the condensers are all made up of copper, because we need very much thermal electrical conductivity there, thermal and electrical conductivity. As I mentioned this earlier also, see, most of the refrigerators and air conditioners, they have copper condenser, and they usually stress on that point, and they will mention that, saying that it has a copper condenser. That means it is having very good thermal conductivity, right? The heat has to be transferred very easily. You can see one more example of cookware here. So it has a very good thermal conductivity, so it's always preferred to have copper utensils to cook the food, so that the heat will be transferred faster and energy can be saved, isn't it? But even though nowadays we usually don't see this more of copper, but if you see in the olden days, most of the vessels are made up of copper. Okay, there are huge vessels of copper. I don't know whether you people have seen this or not, but generally if you see, maybe if you go to your grandmother's house or something, you could still find that very large copper utensils, right, where they heat water, right? So that is because it's a very good conductor of heat as well as electricity. Okay, so now copper can be used, but the problem is copper has become limited, it becomes expensive, so we have turned into steel these days, right? So even now you can see some of the parts where they say copper based, so the base is at least made up of copper, and then we have something else, steel on the top. Okay, so it's mainly because of its thermal conductivity as well as electrical conductivity, so coppers are used. Okay, So next we will see the different alloys of copper. There are one major important alloy is brass. So the composition of brass is, it's basically an alloy of copper and zinc, and the amount of zinc varying from 5 to 45% to create a range of brasses, each with unique properties. Okay, so the copper and zinc will be varied in proportion. So generally you can see the variation of zinc will be from 5 to 45%. So the long difference. So when you vary the percentage of zinc in copper, then you get different type of brasses which has different properties. Okay, so small amount of other elements like lead, tin and silicon etc. are also used, but the major components are copper and zinc. That's a major alloying element for brass. Okay, so what are the properties of brass? It is having high strength than copper because of the addition of zinc. It has good thermal and electrical conductivity, and it is having high machinability. Okay, so where do you find the applications of brass? Applications of brass include basically in producing nuts, bolts, taps, condenser, heat exchanger tubes. So these are some of the common applications of brass. Okay, so brass you would more commonly, I would just say, you would have seen this in taps. Okay, even now the taps are coming with the different materials, but most of the cases if you see the taps, they will be yellowish in color, right? It's not gold. It is brass similarly looks like gold, but it is not gold actually. Okay, it will have somewhat yellowish in color. So you can see the sketches here below, right? So you would see most of the taps that is used will have this color. So that is usually made up of brass. Okay. Next, one more important alloy of copper is bronze. Okay, so what is the composition of bronze? It has 88% of copper and a very small amount of tin, as it is mentioned here, not more than 11%. So there will be some other impurities. You may think it's 88%, if not more than 11%, it doesn't make 100, right? There will be small amount of other elements also. Okay, then what are the properties? So properties are high strength than compared to brass, high hardness and better corrosion resistance, and again it is easily machinable, right? So applications include bronze can be rolled into wires. What is that property that allows it to be drawn into wires? That's called ductility, right? So bronze can be rolled into wires, rods and even sheets, that is malleable property, due to its good ductility and malleability. It is used in condenser tubes and also valve parts. Okay, so it's a sketch that is showing some screws and washer there, but the applications are wide. Bronze, it is also used for making statues. It is also used in making medals, right? We have these applications also. So don't just write whatever is written in the notes. You can also generalize your answers. If you know where exactly bronzes are used, you can also write that, isn't it? Bronze medals are there, bronze idols are being made, right? So all these are applications of bronze. Okay, so next one, another important non-ferrous metal is aluminium. Just like copper, we have another very useful element, that is aluminium. So aluminium looks silverish in color, that is white and silver, whereas copper will have a very brownish shade, isn't it? Okay, so you should be able to identify. I'm sure you have seen copper and aluminium, so I don't want to explain much on its physical appearance. So aluminium is a silverish white non-ferrous material extracted from bauxite. What is bauxite? Bauxite is the ore for aluminium. Just like how we have ore for iron as hematite, magnetite and all. So aluminium is extracted from its ore, which is bauxite. Okay, so bauxite is basically a hydrated aluminium oxide. Mineral bauxite is primarily a mixture of Al2O3, 3H2O, Fe2O3 and SiO2. So these are the elements that is present in bauxite. Okay, so properties of aluminium. First important property I would say is it's lightweight. Aluminium is very much light in weight. Okay, it's easily machinable, it's highly reflective to heat and light, it's a good conductor of heat and electricity, it has very high ductility, and it is also corrosion resistant. So all these properties whatever I've said are very general, isn't it? So you really need not know, because you know the applications of aluminium and copper. So you can definitely write the properties just by knowing its application, isn't it? So aluminium can be drawn into wires, aluminium can be made into sheet, that means it will have very good ductility and malleability, right? Then it is having a light weight, that's one important thing you need to remember. So it also has very good heat and thermal electrical conductivity, that's why we have aluminium wires also, right? So copper wires are usually expensive, so we use it for some specific appliances only, but otherwise for all other general purpose we use aluminium wires, because aluminium is cheaper than copper, isn't it? Actually copper has better thermal conductivity and electrical conductivity than aluminium, but copper is expensive, so we are using, most of the cases we are using aluminium wires for all electrical appliances. Okay, so corrosion resistance is another property. So what are the applications? They have listed out some of the applications here, but other than this there are a lot of other applications also. They have again showed they have showed utensils, then ladder, then aluminium foils, as I told you, the window panes. Nowadays it's all aluminium that is coming, isn't it? So apart from this, aluminiums are also used in electrical wires, then can also be used in utensils, that is shown here. And one more important application of aluminium is in building aircraft body. Okay, nowadays there are some composites being used, but otherwise if you see all the olden aircrafts, they are using aluminium as a body, right? The body of the aircrafts are usually aluminium. Why it is so? Because I've told you its property, it's very light in weight. Okay, the strength to weight ratio is high, that means even though it's lightweight, it is having good strength. So you know, aircraft means it's not going on the floor, it has to go against the gravity. So lesser the weight of the body, better it will be, more fuel will be saved, isn't it? So they try to make with lighter weight and more strength. So aluminium was used, but now we are replacing this by composite materials. So these are the applications of aluminium. Okay, so moving further, we have another non-ferrous metal that is called lead. Okay, so lead, as you know, where do we usually use lead? So it's shown in the sketch here itself. It's usually being a very important component in soldering, right? So we have soldering wire there, what is shown in the sketch below. So basically we use it in soldering. Okay, so apart from that there are other applications also, so we will just go through the different applications and properties of lead. So lead is basically a soft silvery white or a grayish non-ferrous metal. The properties of lead include it's malleable, it is ductile. Of course it has to be ductile, otherwise it cannot be drawn into wires like this. It is corrosion resistant, and it is heaviest among all the metals. You know that lead is very heavy in density. It has a poor conductor of electricity, and also it is poisonous in nature. So this will restrict the applications of lead in domestic and other applications, right? Because it is poisonous in nature. So it's basically used for solder, electrical fuses and boiler plugs. It is also used an electrode in lead acid batteries, right? This is another important application. Okay, so one of the examples of applications of lead is being shown here. It's used for solder, also it's used in electrical fuses and boiler plugs. Some other, apart from what is given here, some other applications will also include that it is used as an anti-knocking agent in fuels. Okay, so we have this leaded petrol. Nowadays it's been not used, now we have unleaded petrol, but otherwise it was used as an anti-knocking agent in high octane fuels. It is also used in high shielding of power against the X-rays and gamma rays. right? The shields what they provide will also be having lead in them. Then it is also very highly corrosion resistant, and it's used mostly in chemical industries. Then lubricating properties of leads are making it to be used as bearings and bushing elements, etc. So these are some of the applications of lead. Okay, so differences between ferrous materials and non-ferrous materials. So some of the differences, major differences, one of the major differences, the ferrous material contains iron in them, and non-ferrous materials do not contain iron in them. So whenever, that's the first point. So that's very common point actually. So second point was also related to the first point itself. Whenever you have iron present in a component, that generally becomes magnetic in nature. Okay, so most of the ferrous materials are magnetic in nature, and most of the non-ferrous materials are non-magnetic in nature, right? So if there is iron content only, they become iron present in them, it becomes magnetic, or otherwise they generally, aluminum, copper are generally non-magnetic. Okay, another important component, these are very simple things you can actually remember. So first point, ferrous material, non-ferrous material, you can write. Second point, you can also relate it to the same point because it can be magnetic, this will be non-magnetic. Third point is also again coming into the same point, because whenever there is ferrous or iron, there is a chance of corrosion or rusting, right? So they have slightly lesser resistance to corrosion, so they rust very fast. Whenever iron is there, they come in contact with air, oxygen, and it forms its oxide, or even it reacts with water and forms its corresponding oxide. But when we have aluminium and other non-ferrous materials, they have more resistance to corrosion. Okay, so tensile strength, if you see, ferrous materials will have more tensile strength compared to non-ferrous materials, and also the melting point, ferrous materials will have low melting point, whereas non-ferrous materials will have a higher melting point. Okay, so we have finished non-ferrous materials. So there are still more actually to be studied, but they will, as I've told you, whatever is there is enough. I don't think they will be very specific on asking you one particular alloy and asking you to explain. They generally ask explain non-ferrous materials or explain ferrous materials, okay, in the question. So you need to know some of the ferrous materials, some of the non-ferrous materials, some compositions of that, properties of that, and applications of that. Okay, same way in the case of non-ferrous materials also. What are non-ferrous materials? Which are the different non-ferrous materials? What are their alloys? For example, alloys of copper, and which are those? What are its chemical composition? What is its properties? What are its applications? If you are able to write so much, it's more than enough. Okay. So next, moving into non-metals. Right, whatever we have discussed till here is metals. In metals we had two categories, that is ferrous and non-ferrous. So we have only finished the metal part of it. There is another classification of engineering materials which are called as non-metals, and under non-metals we have one of them is polymers. Okay, so what are polymers? Polymers are basically plastics. Plastics and elastomers are together called as polymers. So plastics are the materials that are mainly made from synthetic resins and pigments in the presence of catalyst. Okay, they can be molded, cast, rolled, extruded, laminated, machined into any desired shape under pressure with or without the application of heat. So this is very common. You would know that plastics, when they heat, they becomes very soft, and they can generally be brought into any shape that is required. They can be even casted, they can be even made into mold, completely melt that and can be poured into a mold cavity and get that shape. It can be rolled, it can be extruded, as well as it can be laminated, that is pressed and made into any desired shape by applying pressure. Okay. So some of the properties of polymers. Polymers will have low density, low coefficient of friction, very good corrosion resistance. Of course, it will not get corroded at all. You know that. It will never be corroded. It has a very good moldability. and excellent surface finish can be obtained. You can usually see that any plastic or polymer will have a very good texture, very good surface. Can be produced to close dimensional tolerance. What does that mean? Can be produced to close dimensional tolerance means it can be produced exactly to the dimension specified. Okay, so close dimension tolerance, that means if you want to produce at a particular value or a particular dimension, it can be made into that dimension exactly. Okay, it's this is something that it's economical, but at the same time it is also dangerous, even though it's available very easily, very cheaply, but at the same time that they are not going to be corroded, they are not biodegradable. So plastics are being a major problem now. But anyways, it has a poor tensile strength, low mechanical properties, poor temperature resistance, and can be transparent or in different colors. All general things, isn't it? So that plastics can be, plastic in the sense polymers can be transparent in color, or it can be given any particular color. Okay, so there are two types of polymers which was given in the classification itself. One is called as the thermoplastics and the second one is called as thermosetting plastics. Now what is the difference between the two? What do you mean by thermoplastic and what do you mean by thermosetting plastic? Thermoplastics. So thermoplastics are very soft materials and they will remain soft when they are heated. Okay, so on cooling them they become hard, and but there will not be any change in its chemical composition, right? So this is the thing. These thermoplastics can be heated any number of times and it can be softened and you can change its shape after, since it is heated, and then when you cool it, it solidifies and again it becomes hard, and this process is repeated. Okay, this can be repeatedly done. It's not that once you do it, it's over. So again you can heat it further, again you can change its shape, and again it can be cooled and solidified. So any number of times when you heat it, it becomes softens, and upon cooling they will become hard again. So examples are acrylics, nylons, celluloids, PVC and polyethylene. So these are called as thermoplastics. It's important, that's the difference. Thermoplastics means it becomes soft when you heat it, and when you cool it they become hard, and this process is repeatable. That's important. So you can do it any number of times, heat it and then cool it, it becomes harder, and there won't be any change in its chemical, there won't be any chemical change. That type of polymers are called as thermoplastics. Okay, so the different characteristics and application of thermoplastics, I will just quickly go through this. There's not so much important to know. I think most of you would know some of the applications of these thermosetting plastics, isn't it? Thermoplastics, sorry. So polythenes are used in flexible bottles, toys, battery parts, ice trays, film wrapping materials. Polyamide generally we call that as nylon. So nylon is used in bearings. These nylons are generally having applications in most of the mechanical components. It's used in bearings, gears, cams, bushes, jacketing of wires and cables. Okay, then there's Teflon, which is which is used in anti-corrosive seals, in chemical pipes and valves, also used in bearings as anti-adhesive coatings and in high temperature electronic parts. Then polyester, in the bracket we have PET. You would have seen this written, PET bottles, right? So whatever beverage that we have, the bottles, plastic bottles, what we call, they are all PET bottles, PET. So that is nothing but polyester bottles. So they are commonly used in recording tapes, in clothing, in automotive tire cords and in beverage containers. Okay, then next one is vinyl, which is used in floor coverings, pipes, electrical wire insulation, garden hose, phonographic records, etc. Then polystyrene. Polystyrene is used as a wall tile, battery cases, in toys, in lighting panels and in housing appliances. Next is thermosetting plastics. So as I've told you, these two are different. So thermoplastics are the one which will be softened when they are heated and they become hard when they are cooled, and they can further heat again and again it becomes soft and can be heated. So that process will be repeatable. But what is thermosetting plastics? These are the materials which become soft initially on heating. Okay, so initially when you heat, similar to thermoplastics, they become soft on heating, but on continuously heating it further and the application of pressure, it becomes permanently hard, and this will be irreversible in nature. Okay, that means if you heat it initially, they become soft like thermoplastic, but if you continue heating it under pressure, it becomes permanently hard, and once it becomes hard, you cannot bring it back. That will be the final state. So that plastic is called as thermosetting plastic. Okay, and they are very hard and then they become brittle in nature. So examples are Bakelite, Diorite and Plascon. So these are the materials which are examples for thermosetting plastics. Okay, so applications of these polymers include thermal and electrical insulations, automobiles and aircraft parts, in safety glasses, furnitures, toys, laminated gears, bottles, pipes, storage bins, switches, phones, computers, etc. So as you can know, these polymers have taken majority of the have been replacing majority of the metals now. So most of the cases or the bottles or any particular like in switches or in phones or computers, etc., most of the parts are which are on the external side are all made up of these polymers these days. Okay, so moving on with the non-metals, so we have one more thing that's called ceramics. Polymers are plastics, generally ceramics. Now what are ceramics? Okay, so ceramics means it's a combination of clay, sand and feldspar. The three components called as clay, sand and feldspar. So when they mix together in as an ingredients, we get something called as ceramics. As we can know, ceramics are very much brittle in nature. So if you drop ceramic, it will break, right? Unlike plastics. So usually plastics don't break so easily, but if it's a ceramic, it generally breaks. So I'll just say that it's a wide ranging group of materials whose ingredients are clay, sand and feldspar. Okay, clays basically contain some of the following: silicon and aluminum as silicates, potassium compounds, magnesium compounds and calcium compounds. Okay. To be most frequently, silicates, oxides and nitrides and carbides are there. They are typically insulative in nature for passage of electricity and heat. So what basically this nature helps is to make into electrical insulators, particularly in fuse. If you see, even now the fuse is made up of ceramics. Okay, so more resistance to high temperature and harsh environments than metal and polymer. So that is one more important property of ceramics, that it is resistant to very high temperature. So they can withstand very high temperature, ceramics, and to harsh environments when compared to polymers and metals, right? So polymers generally cannot withstand high temperature. It is not at all meant for taking high temperature applications, right? But whereas ceramics can be used, and that is why we have ceramic cups or ceramic plates these days, right? So you would see that the plates in which we serve food in most of the restaurants, if you see, they will be ceramics, right? Even the soups as well as other things. I'm just telling all these things so that you get an idea what it is. So they usually withstand high temperature, and it is good to have food in that instead of plastic containers. They are hard, as I've told you, but at the same time they are very brittle. So they are very much like glass. They break very easily. Okay, so types of ceramics. There are different types of ceramics. They are called as whitewares, refractories, glasses, abrasives and cements. So classification of ceramics. So classification of ceramics, whatever has been told earlier. So you can just see that one of them is glass. Then we have clay products, we have refractories, abrasives, cements and advanced ceramics. So glasses, as you know, they are used for optical applications, composite reinforced containers, and in household applications. Clay products are used for whiteware, structural applications. Refractories means they are usually used for building furnaces, the bricks that is used for building furnaces. Abrasives, that is sandpapers, cutting and polishing. Cements are used for structural applications, and advanced ceramics like engine rotors, valves and sensors. So these are some of the ceramic materials that is being used. Okay, so we have finished these things, actually properties of ceramics. So one of the major properties of ceramic is they are hard and they are having very high wear resistant. The extreme hardness can reduce wear causing by friction. Then corrosion resistance, as I told you, they don't get corroded easily. They are corrosion resistance. And heat resistance, they are very low electrical conductivity, low thermal conductivity, very low thermal expansion, and poor shock resistance. Okay, so lot more are given here. They are very low ductility as expected, so you don't expect ceramics to have very high ductility. They are very much brittle in nature. Generally, the material which is brittle will not be ductile. They are opposite to each other, isn't it? So if it is more ductile, it cannot be brittle. If it is brittle, it cannot be ductile. So high elastic modulus. It has low toughness, low fracture strength. Indicates the ability of a crack or a flaw to produce a catastrophic failure. Okay, so that means if there is a small crack, it will develop, it will propagate, and then finally it will break over the period of time. Next, low density and high strength at elevated temperatures, as I've told you. So elevated temperature can withstand the temperature as well as the strength will be more. Okay, so one more variety in that is glasses. As you know, in glass the major element is sand, that is silica. It is cooled very slowly to form a crystalline structure. Okay, so glass that is heated first and then it has to be cooled very very slowly to get the crystalline structure. If cooled more quickly, it will form amorphous structure. It will consisting of disordered and linked chains of silicon and oxygen atoms. So to make a better glass, it has to be very slowly cooled. This accounts for its transparency, and it is the crystal boundaries that scatter the light, causing reflection. So you know that glass are basically transparent in nature, and they also scatter the light, which is causing the reflection. Glass can be tempered to increase its toughness and resistance to cracking. So this you know that. So nowadays you have all this concept called as tempered glass. So what is tempered glass? Tempering is actually an heat treatment process where you heat only the surface of the material. In glass particularly, the surface will be tempered. So what happens is it can withstand high resistance. It can get more resistance and it will avoid cracking. Okay, so the strength of the glass or the hardness of that will increase. Okay, so this is just an example of how glass is being produced. The job will be dropping into a mold. So this is a mold cavity. Which shape we have to obtain? It's actually circular, cylindrical in section. This is only the cut section has been shown. So initially the job will be dropped there. It will generally be hot, and then you have a plunger or a hammer which will force downwards, and when that happens, it will fill the place around it. The cavity will be filled, as you can see, and then when it is cooled and removed, you get this final product. Okay, so this is how the products are generally made. You have a die or a cavity where the actual shape will be there. So you are pouring the job in the sense the material there, and then when you are pressing it against it, that will take the shape of the cavity, and then when you are removing it from there and cooling it, you get the final product. Okay, some of the properties or characteristics of glass. It has a highly shining appearance and takes good polish. It is not affected by temperature except in some cases. It is fire retardant. It provides heat insulation as well as sound insulation also. Okay, glass is having very good soundproofing system. It also ensures transmission of light. It is available in various types. It can transmit light, that is already been told. Glass blocks provide heat and soundproof properties. So this is one of the properties of glasses, as you know, right? So most of the cases, if you need a soundproofing, you make it of glasses. So because glass has a very good soundproof capability. Okay, some of the applications of glasses. Glass is extensively used in building construction since a long time for doors and windows. So we all know this fact. So you don't have to really study this and understand this application, isn't it? You know the application of glass. It's always used in construction from a long time. So for most of the windows are usually made up of glasses. It is also used for decoration. Okay, that you can write it later. Actually, there are some more important points that you can write before that. See, as I've told you, it is used for sound insulation purpose. That is one of the important applications of glass. You have a glass room. So usually if you see, if you want to have a soundproofing to be done, then we usually have glass. The entire cabinet or the chamber is made up of glass. It is also used to cut glass works. It is used in electrical bulbs. Even now, most of the bulbs will have glass insulation. Then it is used for manufacturing of laboratory equipments. You know what type of glass we call it as borosilicate glass, isn't it? So most of the test tubes or conical flask or most of the laboratory equipment, they're all made up of glasses. Cooking utensils, some of the cooking utensils, borosilicate glass, as I've told you. So it is used in partition walls. It is used for making cabinets, for showcases, for shop fronts, right? That's the most important thing. Whenever you go in the shop, they usually have the glass fronts. And also it can be used as a fire retarder. Okay, so these are the applications of glass. So these are some of the applications of glass that is actually mentioned here, but you can always write your own, because glass, it's a most commonly used material, right? So you can write your own applications wherever you know glasses are being used. Okay. So next, one more variety in glass, it's called as optical fiber. Okay, I'm sure you would have heard of what is optical fibers and where they are actually used, right? So an optical fiber is an flexible, transparent fiber made of high quality glass or plastic, slightly thicker than the human hair, right? So you can know what is the size of optical fiber. It's almost the size of a hair strand. Okay, it functions as a waveguide or light pipe that transmits light between two ends of the fiber or fiber cable. So you know the application of this. This is a major finds its major application in optical communications, right? So most of the times in the earlier days, the metal wires were used to transmit data from one point to another. Okay, so they had limited transmission value, as well as there was a lot of loss in between. So optical fiber, after the invention of this optical fiber, there has been a drastic change in the fiber optics, in the optical communication system, right? So we can have a greater bandwidth, high amount of data can be transferred without any losses. So most of the telephonic lines or internet connections, they are all using optical fibers now, and that is why we are able to get a very high speed and a very high bandwidth. Optical fibers are very widely used in fiber optics communication, which permits transmission of longer distance at exactly what I said, a longer distance at a high bandwidth, and other forms of communication. Fibers are also used instead of metal wires because signals travel along them with less loss and also safe to electromagnetic interference. Okay, so they will not be distorted with any interference. So the signals will be very clean and very fast. If you are using metal rods or anything, there could be a problem with the interference with other signals, and there can be some loss in data also. But when we are using optical fibers, there is no disturbance at all. So very clean data, as well as at a very fast rate, the data can be transmitted. The field of applied science and engineering concerned with the design and application of optical fibers is called as fiber optics. Okay, so the study of optical fibers in terms of communication and design and application of that is called as fiber optics. Okay, applications we have already told. The main application is in telecommunications, in sensors, in some biomedical applications, in lasers, as well as in automotive industries. These are the applications of optical fibers. So you can see this sketch, you would have all seen this. They also use it for the decorative purpose. They keep a light under this and keep it, but that is not the application of fiber optics. So these are used as optical cables, right? So you can see a single cable in the second sketch which has so many number of optical fiber in that. So it is usually used to transmit data from one point to another point. It travels very fast, as in the speed of light. The data can be communicated from one end to the other end. So that is a major purpose of having the optical fiber. Okay, so last part in this is called as CERMETs. Okay, so what is a CERMET? As the name itself says, cer and met. It's a combination of two things, ceramic and metal. So you mix ceramic and metal together, we get something called as CERMETs. Okay, so CERMET is a composite of, it composed of metals and ceramics. CERMETs are used instead of metals and ceramics to avoid corrosion. Okay, so CERMETs is used for having better conductivity. CERMETs also have very high thermal conductivity and a good electrical conductivity compared to that of a ceramic. So we are using the properties of both metal as well as ceramics together and trying to get the best out of the two things. Wherever you need high temperature application as well as good conductivity, we can use a combination of these two and make it as a CERMET. The CERMET will have a high melting point because of its elements which are metals and ceramics. The boiling point of this is also very high. So it's used for a particular application. I think I have one sketch in the next slide which shows a typical CERMET. So this is a product that is made up of a CERMET, which is a combination of both metal as well as ceramic. Okay, so we will stop at this point at CERMETs. So the next part will be composite materials. So we will continue in composite materials from the next class. Okay, so we will not start with this. Anyways, there is a lot to be studied in composite materials also. So we will finish the composite materials and smart materials in the next class. So I hope all of you will go through this video. Of course, there is nothing much that I could explain in these things because these are all read and understand kind of stuff, because we have the different materials, what are the properties and its application. You just need to know where these things are used, metals or non-metals, everything, right? Okay, so next class we will continue with composites. Hope you will keep yourself updated till here, study whatever has been taught and then be ready for the next class. Thank you.